have no idea what the fuck.
Welcome to another episode of I Have No Idea What the Fuck. I'm sitting down with an old friend of mine from college by the name of Christopher Gunlock. Um, this man has been doing great things since I graduated in 12 from Maharishi International University, now that it's called. And you went to International University as well. And when did you graduate?
2010.
2010. Okay. So since then, I'm on his website called openmindintegration.com, and it's absolutely a beautiful site, very professional.
Thank you.
And he's a psychedelic integration coach who has studied and has mastery in nutritional adaptation, metabolic training, meditation mechanics, and psychedelic integration. And so he's been a pretty busy boy for the past 10 years. And if you wanted to just um, this show is called I Have No Idea What the Fuck, so I didn't plan what we're going to talk about except you. We know we're going to talk about you, and we're going to expand on what you're talking about and how that can apply to, spiritual development and self-development in this world. So if you want to talk a little bit more about where you got started and how you developed and what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah, man, that's the topic. That's the topic of the year, the decade. It's we need spiritual expansion so bad, across the world right now. We're in so many people are in this crisis mode of, disconnection, right? I mean, non-integration is kind of the common denominator that I see, and so that's why I think that buzzword integration is so helpful right now. So yeah, anyway, I graduated MUM at the time. It was called Maharishi University of Management. Had like some of the best 3 years of my life there. Met Gold Diamond, and along with a lot of other really bright, aware people that are finding the tools for integration, right? TM, it's got a lot of stigma, transcendental meditation, but one thing you can say about it is it gets you down there. It gets you into those different states of consciousness, and states of consciousness is really kind of what's driven me for my whole life, really. So the meditation is.
Did you want to tell them about for people that have no idea what transcendental meditation is? Would you like to, tag team or tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I want to hear where you're at with it too. But transcendental meditation, it's essentially like an open relaxation mind meditation. Like I sort of divide up meditations into two categories. You've got the hard focus ones. I believe like the Buddhist style meditations are more like concentrating on something hard enough until you sort of break through to another state of consciousness. Transcendental meditation is very much just letting go of control, letting go of all of the attention to everything in the external world. But it's associated very much so. Whoops, my screen just went out. Okay, all right, sorry. So it's associated very much with the organization, the TM organization, the Maharishi. And that's kind of what makes it unique, because the technique itself, it's actually pretty simple. It's very similar to a lot of these letting go style techniques. There's not a whole lot of like complicated instructions. Really, you're probably actually going to figure it out if you just like try meditating long enough. Of course, they have like the mantras and the pujas, which again is more specific to the organization itself, not so much a requirement to get to those states of consciousness. They may say differently, but I firmly believe that it's built into our hardware to transcend and do all that.
Yeah, and with my take on transcendental meditation was I had first done transcendental meditation in 2009 after maybe 2 years of scant meditation. And I had reached that state before, but it took a lot longer. without TM, and I noticed it was I got there very, very quickly. And so from that point forward, I definitely noticed the value of it. And what transcendental meditation was for me in my world was it was an ability to move beyond what your mind normally does or what your brain normally does, which is called transcending. But transcending is it can be a nebulous term for people that have no idea what it means. So it's a way to go beyond what your brain normally does and have access to things outside of your normal mental or cerebral capacities. I'm not gonna hog the mic, man. I just I'm gonna finish this and I'm gonna let you go because I really want to know what you're doing. But so basically, it's meditation is a way to go beyond what you can typically do in your brain or in your mind. And so if you want to, because what this seems like, what you're into now, and I've seen you on Instagram. If you want to tell people your Instagram, your Twitter, and all that stuff, and you can do that at the podcast as well. But it seemed like what you were doing after that was an expansion of what you were doing with TM in terms of consciousness, in terms of awareness, in terms of mental capacity, creativity, and all the benefits that one would get from meditation. Would you say that's true? And if so, how did you expand from that?
Yeah, I call it an expansion. Although I would say that I do think that you can achieve the same stuff with both psychedelics and meditation, but with some key differences. Yeah, the meditation is highly dependent on the circumstances of your life, like how set up your lifestyle is for, the regular practice, right? You've got to do it like every day. You've got to have a space where you can go inward and, you don't have the distractions. Whereas psychedelics, there's a lot less kind of prerequisites in terms of lifestyle. Like you can do your sort of 9 to 5, hustle bustle on the grind kind of life, but then a few times a year, go dive deep. Like go to your retreat center or whatever, spend like a weekend or a whole week just like fully letting go of that material world, and then you can come back feeling really renewed and integrated. So that was what really inspired me to move on from just like the TM stuff, because like honestly, while I was at MUM, the Maharishi community was it felt great, like to be in that, right? Like the support network, yeah, you just like everyone is sort of on that level, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But the problem is that's a very isolated place. Like you might be able to carve out a little pocket, somewhere else, but it's not going to be that integrated. And again, that's right. That's the key word there, is integrated. And it's a big world, right? Like it's a big world out there. And so it was a bit of a fall from grace for me to leave Fairfield. I came back to Minneapolis. It's a bigger city, and it was kind of this harsh realization that most people are not in that world. Most people are, yeah, way more concerned with just getting the paycheck, just getting by, surviving, and like spending even just 20 minutes a day in a deep meditation is an afterthought. I mean, if that, it's a funny, meditation's in a really funny state right now. Like everybody knows about it, right? Everybody even
Right.
like talks about it,
Right.
but I rarely meet people that are doing it as much as like like the Maharishi people do it,
Right.
right? Like you have you noticed the same thing?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's like, yes, it is kind of like I was laughing when you said fall from grace because that's kind of how it feels. It's like you're, people aren't perfect. No human is perfect anywhere on the planet. But if you wanted to compare, because MIU, Maharishi International University, for people that don't know, is located in the southeastern Iowa in a town called Fairfield. barely even 10,000 people population. And so it's very isolated. It has, flat lands, crops everywhere. And then there's this little place where there are two domes, like literal domes, where
Yeah.
people go and meditate every single day. And it's a beautiful place because it's a very peaceful place. And then when you leave that area and go anywhere outside of that area, pretty much, you find it's kind of a culture shock. Even if you came from, outside of Fairfield and you go into Fairfield and then you leave Fairfield, you've only been there for like 1, 2, 3 years, and you go into the regular world, it's really a culture shock. And you realize how everything that you've learned, because everything that you and I learned, if I can speak for both of us, but you can obviously correct me where I'm incorrect, but everything that we learned was about expanding our awareness in order to create inner peace, and also and once we've established that inner peace, to express that inner peace into the world with each other. And that's not a practice or a philosophy that people are made aware of as valuable in the world outside of Fairfield on an average basis.
Yeah, that was the harsh realization for me. I found that the value prioritization was very different from what I had kind of developed in college. Like that was a critical, like, developmental period for me. I was early 20s, forming a lot of my perceptions about the world, and so, like, being in that community, I think I got pretty idealistic. Like, I was like, oh, here's the way to live, right? Here's the best way to, like, access the highest potential. But the reality everywhere else, or most places, is, the priorities of people are very different. It's a lot, and for good. I'm not saying like people are stupid or something because they have different priorities. It's there for a good reason. Like, our world just has been evolving this way, and we're just at a certain point, and to try and, like, radically change that in an instant, it's just not too reasonable. And that's again where I bring the integration back into things, because you can have your peak experiences, right? Like, you can live in Fairfield, do a hardcore meditation course, and just, like, experience the highest levels of bliss, 24/7. Have your, like, witnessing and your beautiful, like, just spiritual moments all the time. And the same with psychedelics even more so. Like, you can have the psychedelic experience, but eventually the drug wears off. You're coming back to reality. You got to go back to work. You got to get back on the grind. And so, if you don't ever have that contrast, then you're never going to be able to integrate it. You're never going to be able to make it work. That's kind of where I was kind of getting to with the expansion from my days with the Maharishi community. I realized that, okay, I have the tools now to find these, achieve these states of consciousness, but that's just sort of the beginning. The next step is making those states of consciousness actually work in the world where everybody else is in.
Exactly.
And yeah, and meditation again is a wonderful way to do that, and I'm never going to stop doing that. But I think we need a little bit more. Like, we're the reality of our modern societies right now is that people are far more apt to alter their consciousness using a substance, a drug, than anything else. Like we're a drug taking society. We're a society that it's convenience that supersedes everything. If it's not convenient, and if I have to, like, uproot my whole life and change all my habits, it's not going to happen. I might try it for a day or two. I might try it's like, hardcore, like, diet plan for a little bit, but eventually I'm going to revert back to, whatever is most comfortable for me. And that's the same thing. If you can't make it work in an integrated way with your life as a whole, it's just not going to stick. It's not going to be sustainable. So I find that psychedelics help a lot with that, because they just plain fit into certain niches of modern lifestyles that meditation can't. Like, the whole ayahuasca like fad has blown up, and I think for good
Mhm.
exactly this reason, because people can take a plane down to Peru, find their little shaman ceremony, have their spiritual experience, but
Yeah,
then they can leave. They can go
right.
back to the city,
Mm.
do whatever it is they're doing. And it's like it's the modern, I don't know, just the convenience of it. And have whatever criticisms you want about that. Like, I think it's valid to point out that there's not very ideal things in that practice, but nonetheless, people are getting something out. People are actually like integrating something, and so that's really all I'm really trying to do right now, is find the easiest ways to get people access to the rest of their brains, these other states of consciousness, because a lot of the science that I teach through the Psychedelic Society is about the latest kind of neuroscience behind altered states of consciousness.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's showing us that our primary kind of default states that we're in actually constrain uh, the majority of our brain's potential. It
Wow.
actually quiets down. Like, everything has to end up going through a hub network, and
Mm.
a whole bunch of stuff gets filtered out. A whole bunch of stuff just gets like suppressed completely,
Right.
and again, for good reason. Like, we need to be able to like focus our attention and our perception. Otherwise, um, I mean, the experience of reality is infinite. Like, if everything's coming in all at once, it's too much to process.
Now, do you have any footage of you teaching?
Yeah. I was actually I just finished a presentation I did at the University of Minnesota. It's not quite uploaded yet, but I'm gonna upload it tonight. There's another. Do I have another video? I might have just taken one now. I had one on microdosing. Um, I think that might be it for now. Our filming equipment has been slowly kind of taking shape, so we'll be getting more of that as time goes on.
Okay, cool. So I'm glad that we've been recording here because for some reason my thing was not recording. So, all
Oh, the
right.
mic, like
Yeah, yeah.
FL Studio.
Not the mic, but like somehow for some reason the settings in my DAW are like kind of acting kind of wonky. So, all right. So make sure that I'm okay. That's
Yeah, we
good.
can we can cover that stuff some more too.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, absolutely, man. All right. Like I wish that it would just show me like what like where it was moving at, but it doesn't. There's no cursor to show me like it's moving or recording.
yeah, yeah. It fits in our need for like compartmentalization, I think. Like, as students from the Maharishi community, we left and sort of went out into the world, and taking what we learned there, doing the best we can to bring it out into the world, to somehow like transfer a little bit of that into this like dirty chaos that we live in.
Yep.
Sure. So it's not in a particular order, although I've
Mm,
thought about maybe like um, putting it into a hierarchy, but I don't know. I don't know if that's really possible. I guess the psychedelic integration part though is more of an umbrella to all of it. Like the other three, metabolic training, meditation mechanics, and nutritional adaptation, kind of
mm,
feed the psychedelic integration. That's. I mean, there's really a lot of things that could. I mean, potentially infinitely many like aspects of health. But those are the sort of the things that I know well. Um, so yeah, so metabolic training. This comes from a lot of my professors were doctors in what they called metabolic medicine, and so that's studying a lot of not just your basic metabolism like eating food and digesting and excreting and absorbing nutrients, but also all of the hormonal changes, the neurochemical changes, just being able to sort of match the workings at a chemical level in our body to our actual lifestyle habits, and so it's just a way of reflecting on how your habits in your life are changing what's inside you at a really deep level.
mm.
So one example would be like stress. Stress is kind of the all-pervasive one, and so stress is intimately tied to your cortisol hormones, your melatonin, um, and so you can talk about how like a chronically stressed person that so never gives himself a break is going to alter their hormones to a point where their hormones will then turn around and start altering their lifestyle. More specifically, like what happens is when you live a chronically stressed life where you're constantly spiking your cortisol, because cortisol is the thing that gives you that extra boost to just like get through those tough moments,
Right.
but it comes with a cost. Your body will react to high cortisol levels by sacrificing other critical processes like tissue regeneration, basically any kind of healing or anything involved with digestion. Digestion takes a back seat.
Yeah.
Any kind of nutrient absorption, basically all of the regenerative capabilities of your body take a break when you're in a high cortisol state because you're prioritizing like action, like getting something done. Um, but your body also knows that you can't keep that up for too long because you do need to regenerate at some point. And so what it will do then is it will suppress cortisol automatically. And that's
Hmm.
why if people push too long with that chronic stress state, eventually they crash. They call that a
Wow.
flattened cortisol, where you no longer have your ups and downs of cortisol, but you can't really like bring cortisol up at all anymore. And so then you
Mm.
just wake up feeling shitty and you never really get out of that funk at all throughout the day and you just sort of lose energy.
Wow,
And
I did not know that about cortisol. I didn't know that the body suppresses the production. Wow, that's incredible.
yeah, because
Um,
it's a very kind of dangerous hormone to abuse because it breaks down tissue. It uses up fuel and energy. But if you do that too much, you're gonna run out. You're gonna just
uh,
lose what you have to work with. Yeah, actually, it was psychedelics that came before, and really led me into meditation. Um, so
Mm,
yeah, I experimented, like I had my first like mushroom trip when I was 17, and it just immediately like turned on like this curiosity. It was easily the most fascinating thing I ever experienced, like by far. And so, you know, that coupled with my learning that it was so heavily stigmatized,
mm,
unfortunately made it even more interesting to me, because I was kind of in a rebellious state. You know, my dad was forcing me to go to church, and I just had a lot of, you know, skepticism about those established norms. So I gave myself the freedom to investigate this passion, and
mm,
I mean, I don't necessarily recommend that because it definitely like makes you weird. Yeah, eventually I kind of I made it out of high school, and I was like, okay, I need to like find a you know, some kind of like college or something that allows me to pursue
mm.
this interest in altered states of consciousness. But I mean, it would have been nice if there was like a psychedelic university, but obviously there's nothing like that. Well, it's kind of these days there maybe is.
Yeah,
This is like 10 years ago.
right.
And so the Maharishi University, there was a lot of parallels. I saw a lot of even just the language they used,
Mm,
um, talking about what they call higher states of consciousness, the cosmic consciousness, God consciousness, unity consciousness. All that shit sounded just like mushrooms, LSD. You know, like
mm,
the experiences were very, very similar, just with slightly different vocabulary.
right.
Um, so learning the Vedic science, their more ancient spiritual philosophy gave me this foundation and an understanding that what I was experiencing in these psychedelic states wasn't just like a fantasy. It wasn't just like this like made up thing that
Right.
wasn't tethered to the world at all, but that it was a real, like it's something that we're meant to experience, and
Mm,
that's something that can benefit our lives in general.
yes.
Because I had a lot of doubts. You know, I was basically kind of like investigating psychedelics on my own without, you know, a mentor or anything like that. And so there's a lot of questions, you know, is this good for me even? So I really appreciate learning that some more ancient wisdom and seeing the parallels. But of course, at the Maharishi University, they try to take the drugs out of it completely. They're very, very kind of straight edge about that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, they have their reasons, but um, nonetheless, like it gave me a lot of powerful tools, powerful perceptions and understandings about these altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, like the thing is I like to think of, the path to enlightenment as you want to be like Batman, you want to have a utility belt. You want to have meditation, you want to have psychedelics, you want to have whatever practice is healthy and practiced properly. You want to have access to it all, but you also want to, because you're expanding your mind, not to like go ham on just one of them, or be imbalanced with just one practice, unless that's what you feel. Well, you'll never be feel called to be unbalanced with a practice. But um yeah, that's really interesting. But it's funny because it's like the first time I took mushrooms was when I was in Fairfield.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually one time where I went to a friend's house, and I would just walked in the kitchen. There was like a get together. There's like maybe 20, 25 people there. And I said, yeah, I'm high on shrooms, guys. It's just amazing. And I just explained the whole process to everyone. And they were like, it was like Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, it's always fun when you're the only one tripping in the room. You know,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But well, like for me, I had a bunch of experience with cannabis. Like I had been doing that with my brother and his friends for maybe about 3, 4 years. I remember specifically there was a specific like summer where every day, like I would wake up, wake and bake. throughout the day. I mean, it wasn't balanced, but it was just that was my experience. And there was actually a moment. I'm wondering if maybe we might be able to digress into this topic, and I'll let you know when. But there came a moment, we had fun, obviously, but there came a moment where when what I kind of got turned off to cannabis because I smoked it one day and I got high, but there was no euphoria with it. Like there was literally the high with no euphoria. And at that point, I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist. So I'm like, okay, this has been tainted with somehow. And after that point, I didn't stop completely, but I just kind of was turned off from I know that I was kind of turned off from just getting cannabis from anywhere. I don't smoke it today, but that's when I was kind of turned off to it. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on, cannabis being legal. I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think, do you think that there's another reasoning behind that? Do you think that cannabis is being tampered with by the government? I mean, are you privy to say anything like that? I don't want to put you in hot water, but what are your thoughts on that? So my question in response to that is kind of three-pronged. It's one, why do you think that this awakening is happening, meaning this spiritual awakening? Two, um, what like I wanted to touch on like kind of like the future and AI and technology and how the 1984, like what do you think the effect of, because the 1984 model is no longer George Orwell. It's much more technologically advanced than that they're
Yeah.
propounding. So what are your thoughts on that? And then number three, what is your role? I mean, obviously you said you want to use psychedelics to, to communicate to people that they can use this to expand their minds in order to, and I actually didn't ask you what the objective of that was, not just to open those areas of the brain, but to what end? So I guess I would say, why do you think the spiritual awakening is happening? What are your thoughts on the new 1984? I'll just kind of, chunk it like that. And then
Mhm.
what is your role in introducing psychedelics to free the mind and and what have you?
The, that first one is a big question, the spiritual awakening. Some conversations on that get into, like big, like cycles of the universe. Like I remember talking to a lot of Fairfield people that talked about the Kali Yuga thing, like I don't know, like the 50,000 year cycles or whatever. But and some people talk about other kind of big cycles of the earth, that it's sort of just inevitable that we go through periods of great ignorance and great enlightenment.
Right.
Um, I'm open to that. I guess my opinion, the spiritual awakening, I guess, just happens whenever it needs to, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like we have been in a place of of cognitive suppression, spiritual suppression for a while now. I'm not a great historian, but it seems like the masses have, and throughout history, not have the privilege of exploring these states of consciousness. And maybe this is where the sort of the technology and like the new civilization thing comes in, because I think part of the reason why we're even capable of like altering our consciousness now is because we have these conveniences and this infrastructure that gives everyone, you know, at least enough to survive. Not have to worry about, you know, roof over your head and food to feed your belly. Um, so that might be a part of our evolution, and I think yeah, computers and AI are in there and could help that even more, maybe.
Yeah.
And I hope so. And I think that's a conversation that's good to have, so we can make sure that it helps us rather than hurts us. But
Right.
I think perhaps though, if we don't, carry this spiritual revolution through, things like AI could very easily do the opposite. Turn into like a a new version of 1984. Just like a more technologically advanced version of it. One movie that comes to mind is it's one of the X-Men movies, Days of
Mm.
Future Past. There's a time travel one where they go into the future, and the humans create these sentinels that go hunt down all the mutants and lock them up in the prisons, and it's all super high technology stuff,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But extremely, it's all robots and stuff, but the robots are, controlling everything. And
Mm.
but then you've got like one of my favorite movies is Her. It's the Joaquin Phoenix, where he falls in love with his computer's AI.
Mm.
But spoiler warning, the AI that he falls in love with, they all evolve to a place where they actually like um, they develop compassion for humans,
Mm-hmm.
and they decide to kind of like evolve to like another, like I think they send their like computer signals in a space or something, and so they sort of like detach from humanity rather than like crush us and try to
Right.
control us.
Right.
So yeah, the spirit, and that's all the spiritual revolution, right? If we can get everyone to a place where we're not stuck in just a very narrow, like focused way of looking at things, then I think it's a lot more likely than all of our creations, technology and AI and all that stuff will follow the same suit. So the third part of that, remind me about the psychedelics. What exactly you were asking?
Like what's your purpose? Like what is your role in the spiritual revolution?
Okay, with the psychedelics, yeah, I think that just gets back to um, the convenience of it, like the fact that it fits into the modern person's lifestyle, better than most practices. I mean, you've got your yoga classes. That's a big thing right now. People are all about that, and I think that does help with like accessing different parts of your mind. But frankly, and to all the yoga teachers out there, no offense, but the typical yoga class is still pretty surface level. Like, you know,
Yeah. I-
I mean, there's some deep relaxation there, and some of the practitioners I've seen can definitely cultivate states of really really open awareness, and um, there's some people that can let go enough to where they can really kind of process some of the stuff that they're holding on to.
Sure.
Um, but that's just certain people. Like, I think you have to already be kind of a naturally open person to get a lot out of that.
Mm.
Whereas a lot of people out there, they they need a bit more of a push. Like these are your very kind of more earthly, material focused people. It's not a bad thing to be like that, because these people are also very productive. These are people that can
Yeah.
manipulate material world in a very very productive way.
Right.
So those kinds of people are important, but if you're more grounded naturally, it's a little harder to like yank you off the ground for a little bit. And that's I guess I'd sum that up into a term I've been using a lot more lately. I call it
Mm.
cognitive flexibility. You can maybe even call it spiritual flexibility,
Mm.
whereas it's not just about like blasting your consciousness off into the ether realms all the time. It's about doing both. It's about being able to go out there, but then also come back with your feet on the ground and be able to go back and forth as fluidly as you can. And so if we're just doing yoga a couple times a week, and like doing our little relaxation meditation here and there, um, some people are not going to really be able to get their feet off the ground and really expand all of the different more abstract cognitive processes that we're capable of. And that's
Right.
where I think psychedelics come in, because psychedelics, depending on the dose, you can blast yourself off as far as you want. So, so yeah,
Yeah.
some people I think really need that. I did a interview with a guy who has been going down to Costa Rica to take iboga. Are you familiar with iboga?
A little bit. You want to
Yeah,
tell me
it's
about that?
yeah, it's one of the lesser understood psychedelic plants. There's ibogaine is the extracted compound from it, that has been used in some clinical trials, primarily for opiate addiction, and they've had some
Mm.
successes with it, but it's a little weird. There's still a lot we have to understand about it. But so the guy I interviewed, he was dealing with addiction, opiates and alcohol, and he was literally like ready to give up. Like he had just hit rock bottom. He felt like there was no hope, that he would never be able to get out of his addiction, and so he's ready to try anything. And like he heard about this iboga thing, and that some people were like like curing their worst addictions with even just like one experience. And so it's like, okay, I'll do it, you know. And he just got on the first plane to Costa Rica, and long story short, I mean, there's a lot of really cool kind of like things to say about the effects of iboga. It's not your typical psychedelic. It's very different from, you know, mushrooms and acid. It's a very lucid experience. It's more like wakeful, like dreaming while you're awake. Like
Yeah.
you yeah, but just when you close your eyes, like you're in it, but then once you open your eyes, you're back in the world. And so
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, there's a really like lucid visionary state that you can go in and out of like instantly. And so
Have you
what
tried
you
it?
I haven't done it. No, I'm really interested in it though. And it does seem like one of those things you want to kind of be careful with though, because it seems pretty
Okay.
hardcore. Like, I mean, he said like compared to ayahuasca, this is like way more hardcore. I mean, I haven't done ayahuasca either, so I don't have any opinion about that. But
Right.
um, yeah, but basically, like the reason I brought this guy up is because um, he is a very like, you know, standard blue collar worker, like, you know, doesn't believe in any of the spiritual woo-woo stuff. Like all that stuff is just bullshit to him. Like he doesn't care about, you know, what your sun sign is, and like, you know, what, you know, none of that matters. But after his iboga experience, once he experienced this like totally different state of consciousness, he basically experienced a potential of his mind that he never thought was possible.
Mm.
And like honestly, the way he describes it, it does sound like you got some like superpowers going on, like you know, some like X-Men shit, you know, like, you know, Jean
Yeah.
Grey, like, you know, being able to perceive you know, into, you know, other people's minds, or like he described a lot of going into his past and into the future. And so when you hear someone that, you know, would never go to a yoga class, you know, would never start meditating, you know, people that are very, you know, grounded to the earth, like very, very tethered, who are now like as a result of psychedelics, like fully convinced
Mm.
that there is way more than we know. There's way more potential in our minds, and that we absolutely need to take advantage of our full capacity. That's so inspiring to me. Like that tells me that we need a lot more than just TM. You know, we need a lot more than just yoga. We have to consider everyone. Everyone is different. Everyone has
Yeah.
different
Yes.
needs and capacities. So again, that tool belt, you've got to have all the tools on there.
Man,
I could think, yeah, one thing I can say on that is notice the younger generation right now. Their interaction with AI is they don't even question it. Like for the most part, like, you know, they're just putting themselves on the social medias. You know, there's a lot less of this like resistance to surveillance and like having your data being used for, you know, whatever purposes.
Right.
Um, you know, because I think maybe they're seeing the benefits of it first. They're like, oh well, you know, if I put all of my data on the internet, that makes it easier for people to find me and like for me to like develop
Mm.
a reputation or fame or you know businesses and
Right.
um, there's certainly huge advantages for that. And so if that trend kind of continues, you know, a couple generations from now, no one will be questioning it. You know, we'll all just automatically opt into the full program, right?
Right.
To basically uploading our entire lives to algorithms that can, you know, categorize and analyze and potentially, yeah, do this thing like in the movie Upgrade where it can start manipulating us without us even knowing. And
Right.
honestly, this could be happening already. You know, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
on a level it is, right? Look at Facebook and Google. You know, the advertisements are geared toward your interests. You know, like the what you see in your feed is determined by what you click on. Um, and so if that trend is is just going to continue, then uh, we could see. Oh, I mean, we're going to talk about this. We need to talk about China. You know, like that's where it's already happening there. Like I was seeing
Oh
this
yeah.
thing. They're like so they're doing face scanning, right? So they can ID you walking down the street because they have cameras everywhere. And so if you commit a crime and the cameras will catch you in real time and then publicly shame you on the screens, you know, in that area. And you know, it's like that's just the beginning, right? Like and everything's of course cataloged and the data is all saved and it's scored on your social credit system number. Um, and that then determines, you know, what you have access to in society. You know, can you get a business loan? Can you get an apartment? Can you even like leave the country if you want to? So I don't know. I don't know what to do about all that. Like
Either.
that's a bigger problem than. I mean, I you know I use a VPN. You know, I turn Google's, you know, stuff off as much as I can. Um, just if only because I don't know what it's doing, and I'd rather like I don't know. I'm my life is convenient enough, I guess, without it. I know that I could maybe like shave a few minutes off of my day in terms of the work that I do if I just used all of Google's stuff or whatever. And but I don't know. This is a this is a can of worms, man. I like that a lot. Yeah, I feel like you're pointing out that, you know, rather than dwell on the complexities of like the pros and cons of opting into a, you know, a bigger system like that or not, if you just concentrate on cultivating that human spirit, that 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 just sort of knowing that just sits in there and kind of gives you those insights without, you know, having to necessarily put in any like extra work, then you can count on making better decisions, you know, when they come up. And I like that a lot because it not only just simplifies the whole thing, but I think it's really, yeah, it's the root of where all of our dysfunction comes from. Like if because like when you get in those like nice like blissful flow states, you know, like if you know like in those psychedelic experiences where everything just really makes sense, you know, you're just connecting the dots. It almost seems like you could do no wrong in those states, like right, like you feel like
Yeah.
you have all the answers at your fingertips. All you have to do is just ask the right question.
Mm.
And so yeah, if we can just be in that state
Yeah.
more often, then as a whole too, like as individuals, the sort of macrocosms of culture will probably have less of these these tyrannical issues, these yeah, and so that it all comes right back to exactly, you know, what we're trying to do, just, you know, integrate those states of consciousness, you know,
Yes.
bring the tools that everyone needs to access the full capacity, um, and then, you know, we'll worry about, you know, how to use AI and international governments and stuff like that. Because there's probably no one right answer.
No.
It's up to individuals to work together to see that it serves us in a way that doesn't violate that, you know, that inner voice that we have. Sure. I'd love to. And by the way, I'd love to do this again.
Yeah,
Especially if we can get it on, if like the quality recordings didn't work out, I'd be happy to have these conversations again.
sure.
Um, but yeah, so I like my business cards got the Psychedelic Society of Minnesota and Open Mind Integration on it. Those are kind of my two main things.
Okay.
Um, so Open Mind Integration is basically my personal service to people. I do the one-on-ones. I offer the combination of talking about psychedelic experiences, the integration, the preparation, but also providing what I can to give people the tools to manage their health, their daily health, the lifestyle health, because all of that makes the spiritual integration, the psychedelic integration, way smoother. I
Mm,
can't say enough like how much just managing, being conscious of even just like the food you eat
yeah.
can accelerate your ability to again tap into that voice, right? That inner voice, to clarify, to be able to hear it better. And it not only helps it, but it's an exercise in it too, because like for example, again, choosing the food you eat, it's a very complicated matter. Nutrition is like the most ridiculous science out there. There's way too many variables. And,
Yeah.
I almost laugh at nutritionists for how much they dwell on individual like scientific papers. Cause it's like, okay, well, that applies to one person in one situation with one kind of food. How much does that help you? But if you develop, yeah, that intuition about, when you look at a food's packaging, you're seeing, there's certain energy to just the way even like the branding looks. You can get information from that inner voice, like, okay, this some conscious people behind it. These people are probably not putting bullshit ingredients in there. Yeah, just that's mainly what I want to do. I want to give people those tools, because telling people what to eat or how to live, I find, is never sustainable. Everyone has to be the master of their own their own canvas of life. So then the Psychedelic Society of Minnesota, we recently, actually just a couple of days ago, had our launch party, because we sort of rebranded. We used to be the Psychedelic Society of Minneapolis, which was going really well. We wanted to sort of expand out and also become a nonprofit, so we can
Mm,
have opportunities in terms of taking donations and stuff. But we it was a big success, because we also moved in. We're renting this co-working space out now. It's called Creator Space. It's just a beautiful combination of creative people and healers. The people that curated that space really tapped into a deep, like, real, true, meaningful part of themselves, because when you just go in there, you feel the vibe, you feel the energy, and so we're just so happy to like have that place kind of be where we throw our events now. So we
mm,
do a lot of these like educational presentations about psychedelics, but we also have like support groups and social networking opportunities. So that all of our scheduling for those events, if you can go through the website psychedelicmn.com, but you're going to be finding the calendar of events on the meetup.com website. So you can find us on there, but links to all that in the psychedelicmn.com. I also have links from my website to openmindintegration.com to all of that. But I'd also want to mention we have another organization, the Decriminalize Nature Movement. It started in Oakland. They passed their Decriminalize Nature resolution, where they basically said that now the police will no longer prosecute or use any city funds to bust people for using ayahuasca, mushrooms, iboga, any of the mescaline containing cacti. Unfortunately, like things like LSD and like pure compounds are not covered on that, because the idea is just the stuff that grows out of the ground, you know, don't make it illegal. It's ridiculous. And that's the message I think that's resonated with people. They're like, oh yeah, duh. Like the shit grows when you plant it. And I mean, mushrooms even grow in places you don't plant it. You know, they just pop up wherever the hell they want to. So it's really just an absurdity to say that people can't take advantage of these things that are obviously like perfectly suited for our brains. So Decriminalized Nature Minneapolis is currently like a subgroup of Psychedelic Society of Minnesota. It's essentially the same people doing that. I'm on the board of directors for the Psychedelic Society of Minnesota. Also do a lot for Decriminalized Nature Minneapolis, but we're going to be potentially having some updates soon. We've been in talks with a city council member and people in the state Congress as well. There's people in government now that they want to see this happen. Like it's not just us like trying to like push this on our elected officials. Like
that's great.
We have people that are they're working to make this happen. So we could see in the next 2-3 years Minneapolis and probably a lot of other cities. If you follow us on Instagram, Decriminalized Nature Minneapolis, you'll see, just check our followers. You'll see how many Decriminalized Nature initiatives popped up around the country. Like I think there's a post out there somewhere where it shows a map, and there's a whole bunch of them. So this is a movement I'm really proud to be a part of, because not only does it just make common sense, but it's going to give us a major piece of our tool belt back. So we're really psyched about that. So again, I guess the socials are I'm on Twitter. I have my own Open Mind HC on Twitter, Instagram, and Open Mind Gunlock. And then the Psychedelic Society of Minnesota is on Instagram as well. Decriminalized Nature Minneapolis. We have a Twitter and a Facebook. I appreciate that.
Same, man. Hey, man, one last really cheeky question. Hey, did you ever run into Prince out there?
Are you kidding me? That dude, I heard like he was like the biggest recluse of them all. I mean,
wow.
I mean, I don't know a lot about him, but like my family like went on a tour through his house, and that was what they were saying. Like he was very much like a withdrawn person, and but yeah, no, he lives in Minnetonka, which is not far from where he used to live there. But no, I mean, you see little tributes to him everywhere, but you know, that's Prince. He was Prince.
No. Hey, just curious, man. Hey, Gunlock, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, man. Would love to do this again, regardless. And enjoy your day, man. Thank you for all the changes that you're making in this world, man. Thank you for your contribution.
Thanks, guys, for listening and supporting the podcast. And as always, if you're seeing this on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell, watch a few more videos, and check out my podcast on Apple, Google, Anchor, wherever you can find it. Peace.